The Justice and Correctional Services Minister, Ronald Lamola, has reopened the inquest into the deaths of anti-apartheid activists collectively known as the Cradock Four. The department says that the minister's decision comes on the recommendation of the National Prosecuting Authority. The families have welcomed this decision. On the 27th of June 1985, the bodies of Spero Mkhonto and Sicelo Mhlauli were found in an open field near Blue Waters Bay. Days later, the remains of Fort Kalata and Matthew Goniwe were also discovered near Summerstrand. The four had gone missing after attending a meeting of the United Democratic Front in Gqeberha. The families say the inquest will hopefully reveal the truth and bring nearly 4 decades of searching for answers to an end. They've also urged the NPA and the minister to deal with and prosecute all cases related to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Justice Department spokesperson Chrispin Phiri joins us now to talk to us about this. Chrispin, very good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
Thank you, Kwena. Just a slight correction. It's ministry spokesperson.
Thank you very much for that correction. Just on that then, Chrispin, just keep us up to speed. So this is something that has been ongoing, but where does this come from? As we know that the recommendation has come from the Attorney General, and it's something that has been mooted along the way.
Yes, the recommendation has come from the National Director of Public Prosecution. And indeed, it follows a number of other inquests which have been put in place by this administration in particular. You will recall, Gwena, that there's been the Imam Harun inquest. There's been the Dr. Neil Agate inquest. There's been the Ahmed Timo inquest, and all of those have had significant findings against the inquest. Sorry about that. They've had significant findings against the apartheid inquests that were put in place by the apartheid regime. In fact, most all of them have overturned those inquests and have really set out the truth around what has happened around our liberation struggle, stalwarts who were killed in the hands of the apartheid government. So we hope to closure what had really happened to these activists who were really at the cold face of fighting apartheid.
And I mean, when we say we are reopened, because we know previously there were some inquiries that were done, but nothing much came out of this. What would be the scope of this inquiry and the desired outcome, if one can put it that way, Chrispin?
The previous ones, we must state, were not done by a democratic government. It's the first time in our country, at least in our dispensation, that these are now inquests done by the democratic government. And of course, ideally, what we would have wanted to see is that these actually could have been prosecutions of apartheid collaborators and apartheid force agents themselves, who were really at the heart of really enforcing the heinous crimes against humanity that we call apartheid. But the scope of any inquest generally, Gwena, is to determine what the cause of death was of a particular individual. And so they will be reviewing a number of facts, like we say in the statement, the ministry statement, that having looked at the evidence that was submitted to the TRC Commission, as well as the evidence that was actually submitted to the previous inquest, the evaluation does add up to a number of unanswered questions that need to be answered before a forum like a court. And should they find that indeed someone can still be prosecuted for those crimes, that is a finding that the inquest can also make if such individuals are still alive.
If you look at this sort of cases, Chrispin, we talk about cases that happened way back in 1985. What does it take then, particularly to go into an inquiry like this? You've spoken about like the Timor one and a few others that have happened before. What does it take to actually get to the bottom of it? We've seen the TRC, which necessarily many would say did not really give us as much information or at least satisfactory answers to some of these questions.
Yeah, I think that's an important question because it involves an incredible amount of resources. Ideally, Gwena, the resources that we've put into this from a prosecuting authority point of view are resources that we could also put to fighting day-to-day crimes. But we've set aside special funds and set amounts of human resources, highly skilled investigators from the Hawks, highly skilled prosecutors in each division dealing with specific matters that fall, rather each province that deal with specific matters of the TRC in that particular province. And it entails, searching through historical records, finding apartheid collaborators and people who have testified at the TRC Commission and revisiting some of their versions. You would recall that the whole process of the TRC was come forward and tell the truth, tell us exactly what happened. Some people failed to do so. In fact, a lot of people failed to do so. They chose to mislead the commission, and the commission made findings against those particular people to say that these people must be prosecuted. Some were granted amnesty because it is believed that they told the truth. And some of those people will be called back to say exactly who did you collaborate with, who was involved in this particular crime. Are you able to add any more information to what you know then and what you submitted to the TRC Commission? And such people would then be required to submit that information to an inquiry, like an inquest, where then a proper finding can be made about the cause of death of someone. So as we know now, some of the versions that were spun by the apartheid regime were blatant cover-ups. For example, the idea that Dr. Neil Agathe had committed suicide has now been unraveled. So he was murdered. The same with Imam Haroon. They spun some tale around how he had died because of medical injuries, but now we know it was torture. So that's what we're looking for in this instance as well, to really get to the bottom of the truth and really uncover this web of lies that were told by apartheid collaborators and agents.
Is there particularly new evidence, Chrispin, that gives you confidence, that should give the families also confidence that the truth shall out this time around?
Yes, we do believe that there's evidence that suggests that a number of, I think, 2 apartheid agents really did go out of their way to cover up the versions that they submitted at the inquest, as well as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And all of that will be ventilated by the National Prosecuting Authority before the judge who will hold the inquest.
And just finally then, one would say that, speaking of the families, they've said maybe not only this, just finding clarity, but also look further into this and other cases that have happened around the TRC and before then. Is there a plan to look into some of the cases you mentioned, others that have successfully been reopened and dealt with? Is there a plan from the ministry side to reopen other cases?
Not only is there a plan, it's currently underway. There are investigations that are taking place in various provinces. Each province has been allocated human resources from the NPA to deal with these issues and reinvestigate some of them. And I think the matter stands at 137 matters that are being investigated across the country, which relate specifically to TRC matters. And what we had highlighted as well was that there's at least progress in a number of, I think, 18 of those matters, if I'm not mistaken, where we're able to provide an update that this is an update thus far. Other matters are before the courts. For example, the matter of Nokuthula Smelane from Betal, Mkhonto Wesizwe, operative who was killed by the apartheid regime. That matters before court. One thinks of the Cradock Four as well, which is before court. And also when we've secured a conviction, actually. In one of the matters in October, there was a conviction of one of the apartheid collaborators who is now currently serving a 10-year sentence in prison. So, yes, there's lots of resources that are being put into this, and we can actually also point to tangible progress as well. Just
as a parting shot, is there a time frame, a time limit that you normally set for, particularly for this Cradock Four case?
From here, we are in the hands of the judiciary. As you would recall in the statement, we had said that the minister has approached the judge president. The judge president will then advise the minister who he has set to oversee the inquest, and from there then it's in the hands of the judiciary, and it's an independent process. So the judicial officer concerned, the judge, will then run the inquest in the best way that they deem fit. So we can't set a time frame for the judicial officers in this case.
Fantastic. Chrispin, let's leave it there, but thank you so much for taking time to speak to us. Justice Ministry spokesperson Chrispin Phiri just talking to us about the reopening of the inquiry into the murders of the Cradock Four.